was very painful, because with all the struggles that we had, and all the fights that we had, and all the misconceptions, at the end of the tenure, somebody somewhere just decides to deduct that money from aviation. I'm tendering my letter, which I wrote to Mr. President on the issue at the time. It's a very strongly worded letter about this issue, and he kindly responded by asking us to negotiate with the Ministry of Finance, which we did. And I thought we had a wonderful conclusion to the whole matter. The Ministry of Finance wrote to Mr. President, and they copied us. And honestly, I thought that was the end of it. I was shocked when about 6 months later, I began to read in the newspapers that this money was deducted en bloc. And I could only assume that perhaps the new administration did so for reasons best known to them. But I'm hearing something new today, and
it was a grant rather than a loan.
That's a good question, and distinguished. Let me just be very frank with you. That's what I'm saying, and I'll tell you, I'm saying even more than that. What I'm also saying is that up until the time. Oh, okay, I can go on. Yeah. Yes, that's the deduction. It's the correct. I couldn't have achieved that without the support of President Olusegun Obasanjo, and that is a fact. On many occasions, people wanted me redeployed and removed from that ministry. He was under tremendous pressure because I was not allowing people to do the sort of things that were happening before I got there, and I resisted them forcefully. I feel that was something we can talk about. International airlines, they respected us a lot more after we made them sit up. We said they have to treat Nigerians with respect, and they began to do so because we told them there would be consequences if they didn't. We got a good number of international routes for Nigerian carriers. The main issue was that countries were coming to fly into this country. Our carriers, who are extremely good, our own airline operators, were not being reciprocal respect and routes outside. And we fought for them, and we got extra routes for them. Another one I think I should mention is the issue of radar. We hadn't had radar in this country since 1979. When I came in, I ensured radar was installed in Lagos and Abuja. And the Track-On project, which, let me just end with this, because the Track-On project, which is very important to this country. When I got in, for some reason or the other, somebody had said that they should delay the project and install another system, even though money had been paid 2 years before. They said they should install a system that was only being used in 3 countries on this planet, and they should bring that to Nigeria. That would have meant more money, more time. And I said, no, we must go back to the original concept. I fought for that. I won the argument. We got the money into central bank funds forced and spent on the Safe Tower project by my predecessor in the intervention fund at the time I left office, having applied approximately 3.8 billion of it. We left the balance for all the contracts that we awarded in the intervention fund account so that contractors could be paid on completion of the contracts. Out of the 2 billion naira Rivers state government for the Port Harcourt runway, I received approximately 1,633 million when I came in, and we paid 1.5 billion, that is 50% of the contract, to the contractor. We therefore left approximately 133 million in the account. The balance of Port Harcourt runway of 1.5 billion is also embedded in the main intervention fund account. As at the time I left, none of this money was missing, misappropriated, mismanaged, or unaccounted for. Mr. Chairman, I won't indulge you any further. I won't ask you to indulge me any further. Thank you very much for the time.
Do you have any comments? Not questions, comments before we take on the
Questions and all that. I'm coming. No person, no human person alive can pull down an aircraft if the aircraft wasn't going to crash. You can cause an air crash by negligence, through not doing what you're supposed to do and bringing up a mechanical defect. But to accord we human beings that extraterrestrial powers of wheeling an aircraft over, I do not agree with it, and if you still have time, you have the opportunity, if you want to withdraw it.
No.
You withdraw that part. I do not.
Fine.
Things,
and I will say this, because it is my personal opinion, based on the fact that I went there, I ensured through hard work and diligence that these crashes stopped. I know what I saw, I know what I experienced, I know what I faced. And you've got me totally wrong. I didn't say somebody somewhere was using forces of nature, whatever, to pull planes out. What I said, and I'm very clear about this, is that people were cutting corners, were ensuring. This was something that was said over and over again. Even when the crashes took place and there was a meeting in the villa, one of the airline operators came and actually said so. Okay? Now, that is the issue. And all I'm saying is that we need to ensure that people do their job properly. That's what you've got me totally wrong. And my faith in this matter is my personal view, and I believe everything has that dimension, and I carry my faith into everything with me.
Should be held responsible for. At what point do you take responsibility for the total amount of money from the intervention fund, which you have now stated 3.8 billion? Were the projects and programs for the intervention not conceived by you?
They were costed. When I got into the ministry, they were brought to my desk not too long after that. I was not involved in the conception, the costing. Everything was listed and done before I got there. It was simply an administrative process for me, and the process was send the documents to the minister, get his approval. Before I approve anything, and if you look at all my approvals, I always insist on due process and due diligence. Not only that, I go a step further. I check out what's happening at due process, because it's important so to do in my view. And if you look at the work that due process did, they deducted quite a lot from it, but at the end of the day, the minister is actually bound or is captive of the forces around him. They send in the documentation. Due process is your gate, is your guard to guard public funds. They're the ones that issue the certificates. Once they've issued that should end the matter. You take the matter to council. Once you get to council, once you get approval, you can now release whatever it is. The problem may come, distinguished, if you feel for some reason or other there's an issue with the due process certificate, and that there's something about it, which of course is what informed my own later submissions.
I would not appreciate if a concrete solid, durable, financial human capital base is provided in one of the MDAs precisely identified to the fund was there before they released the funds. And along this line, about 2 billion naira was released so that it can serve as severance money. And are you aware of any abuses in severance, or even in the structuring that you did after your predecessor left?
Mr. Chairman, that's 2 billion. The 2 billion that was there. Okay. Well, the fact of the matter is this. Again, I can only act based on information that is made available to me. My concern was really, information was coming to me left, right, and center about the Abstatel contract. That's the truth. And immediately I acted, and I set up a committee to look into it. At the time I was in office, nobody suggested to me, nobody wrote to me, nobody brought it to my attention that anything may or may not have gone wrong in that place. I assumed everything was okay. I can only act based on information given to me. If I had received a formal petition or a formal representation from anybody, I would have acted on it. And it's very, very difficult because, the issue of responsibility for what somebody else may have administered, even the person themselves may not be guilty of anything until you look into it. These parastatals handle their money on their own. It's very difficult for us unless we have information to get involved with.
Let's go to the root of this structure, Honorable Minister. You see, the public wants to know, how did you carry out the assignment? Because some people believe that you have done it with absolute subjectivity. Do you think you have added value, critical value to the agency?
They got 2 billion naira to lay off a lot of people. That money was given to them, and they executed and spent that money before I got there. So the issue of restructuring was effected and paid for before I got there. All those that were laid off and paid off before I got there. That was the first issue. And nobody said to me that ghost workers and so, if they had done so, believe you me, I would have ensured we looked into it. But that's point number one. Point number two is this. In terms of the quality of personnel at any of these parastatals, as far as I am concerned, that is the primary duty of FAN, bringing people in. But one thing we did discover was this. There were a number of people that were laid off unfairly. And they wrote petitions. I would probably say, I don't know the figures, I don't have the facts now, but I'll probably say out of every 10 that were laid off unfairly, and we looked at it carefully. Wherever there was a case of injustice, we ensured that we fixed it. In terms of bringing people on board, that is junior staff, I don't get involved in that, unless of course the management of FAN writes to me to say, they want to bring in so and so and so and so. But I am responsible for the issue of directors, which I think is where some people are really heading. Now, let me say this, and I want to be on record as saying this.